cave is dark, but the first light of dawn creeps across stone walls, catching on the ash of a fire left smouldering through the night. A figure stirs, breath rising in the cold air, as the day begins much as it has for countless generations, with fire, stone, and memory. Outside, the earth is raw and untamed. The scent of rain in the soil, the sound of distant animals calling through the mist. Here, survival is not planned, but lived, step by step, breath by breath. Food must be found, stories must be shared, fire must be kept alive. Hands work stone into tools, smoke clings to skin, and silence breaks only with the low hum of voices around the fire. And when the sun falls, rest comes not as luxury but as necessity, beneath a sky wider than any roof. Tell me, if you had to live a single day as one of them, what would you treasure most? The warmth of the fire, the safety of the tribe, or the silence beneath the stars? Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know where you're listening from and whether it's morning or night where you are. Now dim your screen and relax into the night. The sun is only a pale glow behind the mist, and already the cave stirs with quiet rustling, the start of another unknown day. Someone coughs. A child shifts on the fur bedding. Footsteps echo softly near the entrance where smoke from last night's fire still curls upward into the damp morning air. It is chilly, bone deep, stone cold, but the kind of cold they know, the kind that means it's time to rise, not to hide. Outside, the earth is soft from last night's rain. The trees above drip gently, and the air smells of wet bark, flint, and the faint, lingering scent of roasted meat. For the small band huddled in this limestone alcove, today begins like most others, with hunger, with silence, and with a quiet scan of the land for what it might give or take. A man with a thick scar on his cheek kneels near the embers, coaxing life from last night's fire with breath and dried moss. His hands are steady, practiced. Fire is not a magic anymore. It is a skill, passed from one generation's knuckles to the next. He breathes gently, rhythmically. A spark, then a glow, then the shy flicker of flame. He cups it with his hands and leans close, his hair falling forward, shadowing his face. Behind him, a woman leans forward on her haunches, carefully turning a lump of sinew and hide in her hands. She tests the dampness. If it dries crooked, the boots will blister feet. She presses the material between her palms, then stretches it against her knee, her face set in quiet concentration. The children are still quiet. Two are nestled beneath a shared pelt, limbs tangled. Another, the youngest, is awake and chewing on a piece of wood, watching the adults with wide, serious eyes. He does not speak. No one does yet. There are no morning greetings, no language beyond the shifting of bodies and the glance of eyes. High on a stone ledge, above where the fire was laid, an older woman begins to hum. It is low, almost inaudible, a melody without words, old as smoke. She does this often, especially in the mornings. No one asks why. Perhaps it is for comfort. Perhaps it is to remember. The cave is not a room. It is not even home, not truly. It is a pocket of safety, temporary, borrowed from the earth, where dry sleeping is possible and the wind does not bite so deeply. Its walls are scrawled faintly with soot and marks made long ago, perhaps made by them, perhaps by others who stayed here once and moved on. They do not think of the past the way you and I do. They do not name it, but they feel it. In the rock, in the way the fire seems to remember where it was laid, in the places where no one steps. A soft gust of wind pushes into the mouth of the cave, and the fire flutters. The man with the scar shields it with a curved hand. The older woman's hum changes pitch slightly, a warning. The others look to the trees beyond, to the changing color of the sky. Light is coming. It will not wait. Now the light outside shifts, still grey, still heavy with mist, but brighter. It is time. One by one, they rise, some to urinate just beyond the brush line, others to gather stones, to scout, to stretch. Movement begins slowly, like a ritual. Each gesture learned through need, each task part of a pattern that shapes the day. One of the younger men picks up a flat stone, turns it over, and squints at its underside. He is searching for bugs, for traces of food, or perhaps for nothing in particular. His gaze is sharp but unfocused. The way of someone who has learned that small things feed you more often than large ones. Another woman, tall, with hair braided tightly along her scalp, walks to the edge of the hill near the cave's entrance. She crouches low and looks outward, scanning the tree line. Her eyes catch movement. Birds startled into flight, nothing more. But she stays still a moment longer, watching, waiting. Back inside the cave, the fire begins to crackle, soft, gentle. It warms the air in pulses. The children stir. One whimpers, then burrows deeper into the bedding. The youngest, still holding his chewed stick, begins to crawl toward the warmth, dragging his fur wrap behind him. There are no mirrors here, no reflections, but each person knows the look of the others, the shape of their shoulders, the gait of their stride, the sound of their breathing. Recognition lives in movement, not appearance. No one speaks it aloud, but they all feel it. When someone is missing, the air is different. Today, no one is missing. There is no clock to race against, no appointment, but there is always a sense of urgency, not frantic, but steady. The need to eat, to find, to avoid being found. The day will fill itself. It always does. Someone sharpens a stone tool near the cave wall, flicking tiny shards onto a pile. Another woman digs through a woven pouch, checking the condition of dried roots wrapped in leaves. Two of the older children are awake now, nudging each other, one miming the swing of a stick, pretending to be their father. The tall woman returns from her watch, nods once to the man by the fire. A signal, all is clear, for now. The group begins to gather loosely, some near the fire, some by the cave's edge. There is no leader, not in the way we imagine, but there is rhythm. Those who hunt know when to step forward. Those who tend know when to stay. A boy, perhaps 10 winters old, walks to the side of the cave and lifts a small pelt from a rock. Beneath it is a stash of nuts and berries, dried and stored carefully. He counts them silently, then covers them again. He is learning. One of the mothers notices and smiles faintly. Her fingers are stained dark from berry juice, last night's task. Her eyes follow him for a moment, then return to the thread of sinew in her lap. A soft clicking sound begins, bone against bone. Someone is playing. It's the old woman again, tapping 2 knuckle bones together in a slow rhythm. Not music, not yet, but something close. The children listen. One begins to clap softly in time. The cave seems to breathe with them. Outside, the mist begins to thin. The shape of the forest becomes clearer, edges more defined. A bird cries out in the distance, sharp, abrupt. The woman with the braids turns her head slightly. Not danger, not yet. And then, a moment of stillness. Everyone seems to pause just briefly. as if listening to the land itself, to the whisper of another day about to unfold. The fire cracks again. The scent of smoke thickens. Someone adds bark. The day, now fully born, stretches its limbs. There will be food to seek, roots to dig, water to find. But for now, just for this breath, the cave holds them in its hush. The world outside may be wild, but inside this stone cocoon there is rhythm, familiarity, a quiet knowing. This is what comes before the fire is rekindled, the moments when breath and silence speak the loudest. And so the day begins. The cave breathes with its people, a hush of fire-crackling warmth and the slow shuffle of bodies returning to life after sleep. Dawn has fully broken now, pale light slanting across the stone mouth of their shelter. It is not yet the golden warmth of the sun, but the world is stirring, and so must they. Waking here is not abrupt. It does not come with alarm calls, nor sudden words to shake someone from sleep. It is a rhythm, steady and learned, like the pulse of blood in a wrist. One person shifts, then another follows. The scrape of hide against rock, the creak of joints in the cool air. They rise together, slowly, like leaves lifting into the wind. The old woman who hummed earlier continues softly, her tune a thread that weaves between them. The children, blinking, lean into the warmth of the rekindled fire. One child rubs sleep from his eyes with the back of his fist, then curls forward to peer into the flames. His lips part as if he will speak, but he does not. Words are not yet the currency of this waking. Movement, gesture, and breath carry the message. The man with the scarred cheek stretches his arms wide, then crouches low, pressing his palms to the earth. The motion loosens stiff muscles and also signals to the younger ones. This is what you do each morning. The tall woman with the braids mirrors him, bending at the knees, pressing fingers against her calves to ease the stiffness of cold night. Their motions are unspoken instructions, reminders shaped by necessity. In this life, to be stiff is to be slow. To be slow is to be vulnerable. Near the cave's edge, two adolescents rise and walk out into the mist, side by side. They do not look at one another, but their steps match. They move to the same rhythm, trained by repetition, bound by silent expectation. One heads toward a low bush, relieving himself. The other stoops to collect damp moss, wringing it lightly between his hands. The cool water slicks his fingers, and he smears it across his arms and face. A kind of cleansing, brief but refreshing. The women wake differently. Some stretch while sitting, hands kneading at sore thighs from yesterday's walks. One rubs her wrist, strained from scraping hides. Another braids her hair again, pulling it tight, so strands will not fall across her eyes when she bends low to dig or weave. Their gestures are quiet, deliberate, each one both care and preparation. The children rouse more slowly. The smallest crawls toward his mother, climbing into her lap, his hair tangled, his cheeks flushed with sleep. She strokes the back of his head absently, still working with the sinew in her other hand. Another child pokes a stick into the fire, watching sparks rise, then yanks it back quickly, laughing silently at the heat. This is the ritual of waking, not ceremony, not worship, but habit born of survival. First, loosen the body. Second, check the cave. Third, prepare hands for work. The man by the fire rises at last. He takes the glowing stick he has nursed into flame and carries it to a shallow niche in the stone wall. There, he lights a bundle of dried grass. Smoke curls upward, sharp and pungent. He waves his hand through it, directing the smoke toward the ceiling, thinning it before it can choke the air. This will keep insects away, keep the cave from dampening. The children cough softly, but no one protests. They have always woken to smoke. The older woman lowers her humming. She shifts herself closer to the children, and with a sharp gesture, she clicks her tongue twice. The little ones respond, crawling into a tighter cluster, pressing shoulders together. It is practice. It is safety. Should danger come, the young must learn to move together, to become one body, not many. Outside, the adolescents return. One carries a strip of bark dripping with dew. He squeezes it into a hollow stone bowl by the fire. The water is little, but enough for the moment. His mother takes the bowl and tips it gently into the mouth of her youngest. Drops run down his chin, soaking the fur at his neck. She wipes them away with her palm, then licks her hand clean. No water is wasted. As the cave warms with fire and bodies, more tasks slip into place. One man kneels at the entrance, peering outward. Another squats, flaking stone from a core, sending sparks of flint onto the floor. His arms are relaxed, his strikes measured, each tap forming a sharper edge. The sound of stone on stone becomes part of the morning rhythm, as steady as the hum that still lingers from the old woman. The ritual continues. A woman picks up a strip of dried root, chews it thoughtfully, then offers a piece to her child. The boy accepts, biting, his teeth working slowly, eyes fixed on the fire. Beside them, another child combs through her hair with fingers, tugging at knots until her scalp reddens. She does not complain. She is learning patience. The tall woman stands once more at the mouth of the cave, this time with a sharpened stick in her hand. She watches the trees, shoulders squared, face calm but alert. The morning is quiet, but quiet does not mean safe. Birds call, leaves drip. Somewhere far off, a branch cracks. She tilts her head, listening. Her breath is steady. She waits. Then, assured, she lowers the stick and returns inside. By now, the entire band is awake. Their bodies are loose, their eyes open, their minds shifting toward the day ahead. There is no spoken planning, no discussion of tasks. Each knows, by instinct and long practice, what must come next. Some will go out to forage, some will stay to tend. Some will range farther in hope of hunting. The ritual of waking is not only about shaking sleep away, it is about aligning themselves with the pulse of the group, with the silent rhythm that holds them together. The old woman rises last. Her bones creak audibly, her knees stiff. She leans on a stick cut short and polished smooth by her hand. She does not join the younger ones in stretching or stepping out. Her role is different. She shuffles closer to the fire, extending her hands above the flames. Her eyes, pale and milky with age, follow the smoke upward. She whispers something under her breath, not words as we know them, but soft sounds, shaped and reshaped. The children watch her, hushed for a moment. They do not understand, but they feel the weight of her presence. The man with the scar places a small bundle of dried grass at her feet. She nods once, and he returns to his task. No more is said, but in that nod, there is acknowledgement. Her watching matters. Her blessing, though unspoken, gives shape to the morning. And so, the ritual of waking comes to its quiet close. They are no longer sleepers. They are bodies ready for motion, hands ready for labor, eyes tuned to the shift in light of the day. The cave, once filled with the deep breathing of night, now hums with activity. The scrape of stone, the crackle of fire, the rustle of hides, the rhythm of children's play. the low murmur of the old woman's voice, still weaving its thread through the air. Outside, the mist is breaking. The forest reveals itself in shades of green and brown. The day calls, and with bodies prepared and spirits settled, the band steps closer to that call. The ritual of waking has ended, and the work of living begins. The cave is awake now, alive with the rustle of movement, the faint crackle of fire, and the steady rhythm of tasks beginning. Yet through all this stirring, there is almost no sound of speech. Their world is shaped by a language older than words, a tongue woven from gestures, glances, and the soft percussion of body against earth. The children are the first to play in this silent lexicon. One crouches, his small hand clutching a stick. He scratches lines into the dirt near the fire, dragging the point again and again until a crude shape emerges. Another child watches, her eyes following the marks. She tilts her head, then presses her palm against the dirt, smearing half the lines away. The boy laughs, not with voice, but with shoulders shaking, teeth flashing. He draws again. She erases again. A game is born, soundless yet full of meaning. Nearby, two adolescents prepare to leave the cave, ready for their first foraging of the day. They exchange no words. Instead, one tilts his chin toward the trees, the faintest nod. The other responds with a flick of his wrist, palm up, agreement. They move in unison, one taking a stick hardened in fire, the other gathering a pouch made from animal stomach, stiff but waterproof. They vanish into the mist together, the conversation complete though no syllable was spoken. The tall woman with the braids kneels beside another, arranging thin strips of meat left over from last night. She spreads them on a flat rock near the warmth of the fire to dry further. Her companion leans over and touches one piece, then holds up two fingers. The braid woman shakes her head, then points toward the forest. The gesture is clear. Not yet, wait for the hunters. Her companion exhales, nods, and withdraws her hand. Agreement is settled without conflict. This is how their days unfold. A chorus of movements, eyes, and small sounds. When the man with the scarred cheek wishes to alert others, he does not shout. He clicks his tongue sharply, once or twice, and raises his hand flat. Instantly, bodies still. Faces turn. They understand. Silence is safety, and words, if they exist at all, are precious and rare. Even the old woman, with her milky eyes and worn hands, speaks more with her fingers than her tongue. She draws lines on the ground with sticks, circles for the sun, slashes for trees, dots for animals seen in dreams or memories. Children gather around her, copying her marks. They do not call them names. They do not teach them as lessons. Yet slowly, the memory of shapes takes root. Their communication is not only of the body, it is of the earth itself, etched and drawn in ways that endure longer than voice. At times, though, sound does break free. A sharp cry when a child stumbles into embers. A grunt when a stone strikes harder than intended. A low hum from the elder, always weaving her morning song into the fabric of their silence. These sounds are not words, not yet, but they are fragments of something larger, the beginnings of speech, the bones of language waiting for flesh. Outside the cave, the adolescents move with the same voiceless flow. One stops, kneeling to examine a patch of earth. He touches two broken shells half buried in mud. He lifts them, shakes his head, then tosses them aside. The other crouches, pokes at the soil, then raises three fingers. The first nods. They scrape gently at the ground, finding grubs beneath. A meal, small but vital. Without words, they share the discovery, divide it, and eat. Back within the cave, gestures carry other layers of meaning: affection, warning, memory. The mother with the berry-stained hand sits close to her child, stroking his arm. She presses her forehead briefly against his, then pulls back. It is comfort, as deep as any spoken lullaby. Another woman taps her daughter's shoulder twice, then points toward the fire. The girl understands. Watch, tend, learn. She rises immediately, settling beside the flames to feed them bark, her small hands careful. The scarred man, who has been sharpening his stone blade, pauses to glance at the sky beyond the cave mouth. He lifts the blade, points toward the horizon where the mist is breaking, then sets the tool down with a deliberate motion. Others look. They know what he means. The day is brightening, and it is nearly time to leave for the hunt. Yet this silent system is not only functional, it is beautiful in its own way. It binds them, weaving the group together more tightly than any single voice could. Each gesture carries layers, shaped by context, memory, and trust. The child erasing the boy's drawing does not mean defiance. It means play, a dance of challenge and response. The tilt of a head can mean danger or curiosity, or the simple act of look there. Meaning shifts, yet understanding is constant. Imagine it, a world where silence is not emptiness, but fullness, where every movement of hand and body is as eloquent as any sentence you or I could speak. Their world is one of constant attention, of eyes always reading, of bodies always signaling. No one is ignored, no one is invisible. To be unseen would mean death. To be seen, even in silence, is life. The old woman rises again, moving to the wall of the cave. With her fingertip, she traces faint marks, handprints, smeared soot, shapes that once meant something to those who drew them. She places her hand against an ancient palm mark, smaller than hers, perhaps left by a child long ago. She presses firmly, then pulls away, showing her blackened hand to the children. They giggle, some clapping, others reaching to do the same. Without words, she has given them a lesson. We were here, and before us, others were too. Later, as the mist outside burns away, the adolescents return. They carry small finds, roots, grubs, damp moss wrapped in bark. Their mother meets them at the entrance. One son tilts his chin, raises the pouch, and tips it forward slightly. She takes it, touches his cheek briefly, then turns away. Approval has been given, reward in the form of touch. The boy smiles faintly, eyes bright. This is how they grow. This is how they learn. Not from long explanations, not from tales spun in words, but from watching, from repeating, from carrying gestures like seeds into the soil of memory. Every motion sows understanding, and every child will one day harvest it. The scarred man now gathers 3 others. He places his palm flat against his chest, then points outward toward the forest. His meaning is unmistakable. It is time. The hunt awaits. Each hunter touches his own chest in answer. I am ready. No speech, no rallying cry, only the silent pact of survival. As they depart, the cave remains alive with its voiceless dialogue. Children play, women tend, elders watch. Every moment is threaded with unspoken words, with meaning carried in muscle and movement. To an outsider, it might seem quiet. To them, it is full of voices without words, the language of the first dawns of humanity. And as the hunters vanish into the green, the old woman hums again. The sound rises and falls, a fragment of music in a world built on silence. Perhaps someday those hums will become songs, and songs will become words, and words will carry the weight of thought. But for now, they have no need. For now, their voices live in the space between sound, in the gestures, the glances, and the endless eloquent silence of survival. The hunters move first, slipping from the cave like shadows, but the day's rhythm is not theirs alone. Behind them, in smaller groups and slower steps, the foragers begin to stir. Foraging is not as dramatic as the chase, yet it is as vital. The hunters may fail, the woods may yield nothing, but roots, berries, nuts, insects, these small, certain gifts of the land, they keep hunger from biting too deep. The tall woman with the braids takes the lead. At her side, two younger women follow, carrying plaited pouches slung across their shoulders. Children trail behind, wide-eyed, nimble, quick to notice what adults might miss. The scarred man's mate stays with them as well, her infant tied against her back in a wrap of hide, its tiny hands clutching at her shoulders. This is not leisure. It is survival, and survival must include the young. They learn by walking the paths their elders have walked. The forest greets them with cool dampness. Leaves still drip from the night's rain, and the soil clings to bare feet. The air hums faintly with insects. A bird flutters, startled, its wings loud in the hush. The group pauses a moment, instinctively lowering themselves, listening. The hunters are far ahead, but caution belongs to everyone. Nothing stirs nearby, only the steady patter of dew. They rise again. The tall woman bends low, touching the ground where faint depressions mark the soil. Her fingers follow the shape. Two narrow points, spread slightly. Deer tracks. She raises her hand, showing two fingers, and the others gather close. The younger women lean forward, their eyes tracing the impressions. One child imitates, pressing his hand into the mud beside them, leaving his own print. The group chuckles silently, a quick breath of amusement before the woman rises and gestures them onward. They are not following the deer. That is for the hunters. They are learning its path, marking where it feeds, where it drinks. Knowledge is as important as today's meal. As they walk, their eyes stay low. Every tuft of green may hide food or danger. One woman stoops to tug at a plant, pulling gently until a root slides free. She snaps off the leaves, rubs the root against her palm, then touches it lightly to her tongue. Bitter, but safe. She shows the others, who nod and tuck it into a pouch. Another woman finds a bush with berries, dark and plump. She squats beside it, tests one with her teeth. The juice stains her lips. She tilts her head, weighing its taste. Then she plucks more, careful not to strip the bush bare. The children watch, imitating with clumsy fingers. One smears berry pulp across his cheek, grinning silently as the others laugh. Farther on, the group halts at the edge of a clearing. The tall woman raises her hand sharply. Ahead, the grasses bend, and small shapes dart through. Rabbits, startled by their scent. The children lean forward eagerly, but the tall woman shakes her head. Too quick, not worth the chase. She crouches instead, examining the ground. Fresh droppings, soft and damp. She gestures with her chin. This is a feeding ground. Perhaps later, the hunters will return here. For now, they move on. The infant stirs against his mother's back, fussing. She shifts her shoulders, humming low, swaying slightly as she walks. The baby quiets. The rhythm of her steps and the sound of her voice are the only lullaby he knows. Her hands remain free to gather leaves, to point out mushrooms clustered against a rotting log. She picks carefully, avoiding the bright-capped ones, choosing only the dull brown with faint gills beneath. She presses one into her child's hand before placing it into her pouch, teaching him, even now, to know what is safe. Hours pass this way, the group winding deeper into the forest. They walk along faint animal trails, marked by trampled grass and rubbed bark. Each sign is read as carefully as a story. Here, a tree scraped by antlers. There, a patch of soil disturbed by rooting boar. Each mark tells them who shares this land, who passed here in the night. They follow these signs not just to eat today, but to remember for tomorrow. The children grow restless. One begins to lag, dragging a stick through the soil, tracing lines. Another skips ahead, stooping to flip rocks, searching for beetles. The women allow this, within reason. Curiosity is not scolded. It is sharpened, shaped into the instinct that will one day feed the group. A boy cries out sharply, startling everyone. He has jabbed his finger against a thorn. His mother is quick, pulling his hand close, examining the wound. Blood beads. She presses the cut into her mouth, sucking away the sting, then spits to the ground. The boy's tears stop almost as quickly as they began. She taps his chest twice, firmly, then points him back to the group. He nods, chastened, but stronger for it. By midday, the pouches hang heavier. Roots, berries, mushrooms, insects, small things, each alone a mouthful, together a meal. The group pauses near a stream, its water running low but clear. The tall woman kneels first, dipping a bark bowl, sipping slowly. The others wait, then follow, filling hands, bowls, mouths. The children splash, cupping water in fists and letting it fall again, giggling soundlessly. Their mothers allow a moment of play. Even here, joy has its place. The tall woman lifts her face suddenly, drops of water shining on her skin. She raises her hand sharply, stilling the group. Across the stream, faint movement stirs in the trees. A shadow, slow and heavy. The women crouch, pulling the children close. The infant whimpers but is hushed quickly. They watch, leaves rustle. Then, slowly, a great shape emerges, not predator, but power. A bison, alone, massive, its flanks heaving as it grazes near the stream. Its horns catch the light. The group does not move. They watch in reverent silence. No one gestures, no one stirs. The bison lowers its head, tearing grass. Water drips from its muzzle as it drinks. Then with a snort it turns, lumbering back into the trees. Only when it has gone do the women breathe again. The children's eyes are wide, full of awe. One boy mimics horns with his fingers, lowering his head playfully. The others laugh, but softly, aware still of the weight of what they've seen. The tall woman straightens, nods once, and gestures them onward. They will remember this place. The hunters must know. By the time the group turns back toward the cave, the forest has grown brighter, the sun high above, shafts of gold slanting through the canopy. Their pouches are full, their feet stained with earth, their hands marked with berry juice and scratches from thorns. The children are weary but proud, carrying their own small treasures, a cluster of nuts, a bug, a smooth stone. The path home is slower, but not careless. They retrace their steps, eyes scanning still, marking each plant, each print, each shadow. Foraging is never finished. Even the walk back teaches. When at last the cave comes into view, smoke curling faintly from its mouth, the children run ahead, clutching their finds, eager to show. The mothers follow, slower, steady, placing their pouches down beside the fire with quiet relief. The tall woman is last, pausing at the cave's edge to glance once more at the trees behind. Her eyes are calm, but alert. The forest is both friend and enemy. Today it has been generous, tomorrow it may not. Inside, the cave fills with the scent of roots, berries and mushrooms, the sharp tang of wild herbs, the sweetness of crushed fruit. The children chatter silently with their hands, miming the deer tracks, the rabbits, the great bison by the stream. The adults listen, smiling faintly, while sorting the day's harvest into piles. The ritual is complete. The band will eat tonight. And as dusk edges closer, the forest quiets outside. Foraging paths fade into shadow. Animal trails grow cold. And the world holds its breath, waiting for night. The hunters are still away. The foragers have returned, laying out their finds on flat stones near the fire. Roots and berries glisten in the dim light. Mushrooms spread in a careful line, insects wriggling faintly before they are plucked and dropped into a pouch. The cave smells of earth and smoke, and the steady crackle of the fire is the pulse of the space. But the heart of the camp, the true center, is not only in food or flame. It is in the children gathered close, their small forms circling the warmth, mimicking, playing, learning. They are restless after the long morning walk. Their hands are stained with berry juice, their legs still jittering with energy. One boy crouches low, clutching a stick, and makes a soft huffing sound through his nose. He lowers his head, horns invisible but imagined, and charges at another boy. The second leaps aside, laughing silently, then raises his arms, mimicking the hunters with their spears. He jabs forward clumsily, the stick wobbly in his grip. The group of children erupts into movement, some becoming bison, others hunters, their game a rehearsal of survival. The mothers watch, some smiling faintly, others focused on their tasks, but with eyes still half on the circle. Play is not wasted time. It is training disguised as laughter. Each game is a small lesson, a seed planted in muscle and memory. The eldest child, a girl perhaps 10 winters old, takes charge of the circle. She crouches near the fire, rubbing her hands together, then mimics the scarred man as he blows into the embers each morning. Her cheeks puff, her lips purse, though no flame needs tending. The younger ones copy, leaning forward, blowing clumsily, their breath scattering ash. A puff of smoke rises, and they squeal in delight. The elder girl claps twice, as the old woman does, signaling them to try again. She has become the teacher without meaning to. Another child squats by the wall, dragging her hand across the soot-darkened stone. She leaves streaks, then presses her palm flat, pulling it away to leave a faint mark. The others gather around, tracing the outline with their fingers. One boy smears the mark into the shape of a crude animal, broad back and short legs. He grunts, points, then lowers his head, mimicking the bison they saw earlier. The circle roars with laughter, a chorus of soundless mirth, their shoulders shaking, mouths wide open. The old woman joins them slowly, shuffling forward with her stick. She lowers herself to sit among them, her bones creaking. The children hush, as they always do when she is near. She dips her finger into the ash at the fire's edge and draws on the ground, a line, a curve, a circle. The children lean closer. She taps her chest, then taps the circle. Her meaning is simple: we belong to this. The children nod solemnly, understanding in their way. Then, as quickly as the solemnity arrives, it vanishes. One child grabs a bone from the pile beside the fire and begins drumming it against a hollow log. Another joins, tapping rhythmically. Soon the circle pounds together, their play becoming a song of percussion. The firelight flickers across their faces, casting them as shadows and spirits on the cave wall. They do not know words yet, but they know rhythm, and rhythm binds. The mothers allow this noise. It is safe here, at least for now. The hunters are far, the forest quiet. Play can be loud, play can stretch wide. A boy, emboldened, creeps toward the cave's entrance, stick in hand. He jabs at invisible enemies in the air, growling. Another follows, and soon a line of children is marching out into the daylight, their game spilling beyond the cave. One of the women rises quickly, striding after them. She claps her hands once, sharp, pulling them back. The children return, chastened but still laughing, their game reshaped within the circle. Boundaries matter, even in play. Back inside, the infants are quieter, tied close to their mothers' backs or nestled in hides. Yet even they are part of the circle. One tiny hand reaches out from its sling, grasping at the air. The mother takes the hand gently, presses it against her lips, then folds it back against the child's chest. Even this too is learning. The first gestures of comfort, the first exchanges of touch. The circle shifts again. Now they are gathering, mimicking the foragers. The eldest girl hands out small stones, pointing to the ground, urging the others to pretend dig. They scrape, pull at imaginary roots, then hold them up high in triumph. A younger boy, eager to join, presents a real beetle he has plucked from the earth. The others crowd around, poking at it until it scuttles away. Their laughter echoes softly in the cave. The scarred man's son, a boy of perhaps 7 winters, takes the center now. He thrusts his stick high, mimicking the way his father leaves for the hunt. He points toward the cave's mouth, his eyes fierce. The circle follows, all sticks and bones raised, faces set in mock seriousness. They stamp their feet, imitating the hunter's silent tread. For a moment, the cave is filled with the shadow of a hunt that has not yet returned. The old woman watches, her milky eyes gleaming in the firelight. She hums again, low, steady, her song weaving through the circle. The children pause, then join her with their own sounds. Hums, grunts, rhythmic breaths. Their play turns to chant, their chant to laughter, their laughter to silence again. This is their education. Not scrolls, not lessons, but fire and play, imitation and imagination. Each gesture, each game, lays the foundation of memory and skill. The fire is their classroom. The circle is their teacher. Even danger has its place in this circle. When one boy jabs too hard with his stick and strikes another, the second bursts into tears. The mothers do not rush. Instead, one steps forward, takes the stick from the boy's hand, and strikes the ground with it sharply, twice. The boy lowers his head, ashamed. She returns the stick, guiding his hand to lift it more gently. The lesson is given. The play resumes. As afternoon wanes, the fire grows brighter against the dimming cave. The children grow tired, some curling close to their mothers, others lying flat on the earth, their play fading into stillness. The eldest girl gathers the smallest ones near, stroking their hair, humming the old woman's tune in her high, thin voice. The firelight bathes them in gold. Outside, the forest darkens, shadows lengthening. The hunters are not yet back. The foragers prepare roots and berries, setting them into stone bowls, grinding some with pestles made of bone. The scent of crushed herbs rises. The fire circle shrinks as sleep claims the littlest ones. But even in dreams, their hands twitch, their mouths move, replaying the day's games in silence. The fire hums, the circle breathes, and the lessons of survival, play, mimicry, rhythm, gesture settle deeper into the bones of the children, waiting for the day they will rise as hunters, gatherers, and keepers of fire. The fire burns steady now, fed with bark and branches. Shadows shift along the cave walls, stretching tall and then shrinking again as flames dance in uneven rhythm. The hunters are still away, but the cave is alive with its own work. While children play at the fire circle and mothers sort the gathered roots, others turn their attention to another vital task, the making and mending of tools. Tools are survival made visible. Each flake of stone, each strip of sinew, each shard of bone carries within it the memory of necessity. They are not luxuries. They are the line between hunger and strength, between shelter and cold. And so the cave hums not only with play and song, but with the sharp percussion of stone against stone. The scarred man is at work, seated cross-legged near the cave's edge where the light is good. A large piece of flint rests in his lap. He grips it firmly in one hand and strikes with another stone, sending sharp-edged flakes flying in tiny arcs. His motions are practiced, patient. Tap, strike, rotate, tap, strike, rotate. Each fragment is examined quickly, and those too small or blunt are tossed aside, scattering across the cave floor. Others are gathered in a pile, promising new blades. One of the younger men kneels beside him, watching closely. His eyes follow every angle, every twist of the wrist. The scarred man pauses, then gestures for him to try. The youth takes the core in his hands, hesitates, then strikes. The sound is wrong, too hard, too sharp. The flint splinters unevenly. The scarred man shakes his head, then takes the youth's hands, adjusting his grip. He strikes once more, softer, angled. A clean flake falls. The older man nods, a faint smile flickering across his scar. Lesson given, lesson learned. Elsewhere, a woman squats over a flat stone slab. She is scraping a hide, pulling a sharpened flake across its surface to soften it. Each motion is steady, rhythmic, accompanied by the faint rasp of stone on flesh. She sprinkles a powder of crushed herbs onto the hide, rubbing it in with her palms. The smell is sharp, pungent, mixing with the smoke of the fire. This hide will become a cloak, or perhaps bedding, thick enough to keep the cold night from creeping in. A child watches her, eyes wide. The woman hands him a duller flake and a strip of spare hide. He mimics her movements, awkward but determined. His scraping leaves uneven patches, but he persists. His mother leans close, guiding his hands, showing him the motion. In silence, he learns, as children always do. On the far side of the cave, an older man works with bone. He holds a femur stripped of meat, its surface gleaming white in the firelight. With a stone flake, he begins to carve, shaving away slivers until a sharp point emerges. He rubs the bone against a rough rock, smoothing and sharpening the edge. Soon it will be a needle, or perhaps the tip of a spear. He tests it against his palm, satisfied, then lays it carefully beside him. The tall woman with the braids joins him, bringing with her a bundle of sinew. She threads it through the hollow of a small bone, twisting it tightly, creating cordage strong enough to bind wood to stone. She pulls hard, testing its strength, then nods. Together, they are building tools not for today alone, but for days yet to come. The old woman shuffles closer, her stick tapping against the stone floor. She lowers herself beside the toolmakers, watching with clouded eyes. Her hands, though stiff, still remember. She picks up a small flake, turns it between her fingers, then sets it down again. She hums softly, her song mingling with the sound of stone strikes. The rhythm of her voice and the rhythm of their work blend into one. the music of survival. The children, drawn by the sound, drift closer. They sit in a small cluster, eyes fixed on the scarred man and the flint in his lap. He pauses, looks at them, then lifts a flake high, letting the firelight catch its sharp edge. The children gasp softly, their mouths open in awe. He sets the flake against a piece of wood, slicing effortlessly. The lesson is clear. Stone gives power. Stone gives food. Stone is the hand's sharp edge. One brave child reaches forward, fingers outstretched. The scarred man pulls the flake back quickly, shaking his head. He picks up a duller stone and places it in the child's hand instead. The boy frowns, but begins to scrape it against the ground, pretending, imitating. The others follow, each with a pebble or stick, their small circle mirroring the work of their elders. Outside the cave, faint sounds drift in. The call of a distant bird, the rustle of leaves in wind. Inside, the soundscape is different. The steady tap of flint, the scrape of hide, the snap of sinew. The cave is a workshop, every hand engaged, every task woven into the fabric of need. As the afternoon deepens, tools begin to take shape. Blades, sharp and gleaming, scrapers, edges honed, points of bone, needles thin and strong, cord made of sinew, braided tight. Each object is placed carefully, not scattered. They are stored in cracks of the cave wall, in bundles of hide, in baskets woven from reeds. Nothing is wasted, nothing is forgotten. One woman lifts a finished blade and tests it on a strip of bark. The cut is clean, smooth. She smiles faintly, satisfaction glowing in her eyes. She wraps the blade in a piece of hide, tying it with cord, preparing it for the hunter's return. When they go again tomorrow, their hands will not be empty. The old woman hums louder now, her song weaving through the cave. The children begin to clap bones together in rhythm, echoing her beat. The workers do not pause. Their motions align with the music, striking in time, scraping in time. For a moment, the cave is not just survival, but a kind of harmony, work and sound bound together. As the shadows lengthen, the work slows. Hands grow tired, eyes heavy. Tools are set aside, tasks completed. The scarred man places his flint core on a shelf of rock, saving it for tomorrow. The woman with the hide folds it carefully, setting it near the fire to dry. The tall woman coils her cord, laying it beside the bone spear tip. Each tool waits, silent but ready. The children, still buzzing with energy, gather their pebbles and sticks. They pretend to hunt, to scrape, to cut. Their play echoes the work, weaving learning into laughter. The old woman watches, her eyes distant but soft. She hums still, her voice steady, as if to say, "This is how we endure." And so, as the day leans toward evening, the cave settles once more into quiet. The fire burns low, the tools gleam faintly in the dim light, and the rhythm of need has been met again. Tools born of stone and need, each one a fragment of survival, each one a promise for tomorrow. The fire glows steady within the cave, but evening does not mean rest. Not yet. Beyond the stone walls, the forest still calls, its shadows lengthening, its air heavy with the scents of damp soil and crushed greenery. The hunters remain away, chasing larger prey, but the women and children prepare for one more task before dusk fully claims the land. Gathering. Not far, never far at this hour. The day is too short and darkness too near, but near the cave, beneath the shelter of trees, there are still roots to be dug, leaves to be stripped, herbs to be found. A second harvest, smaller than the first, yet no less vital. The tall woman with the braids rises first, lifting her pouch over her shoulder. She glances to the others, tilts her chin toward the trees. A silent question. Two mothers nod, one tying her infant more securely against her back, the other beckoning her daughter to follow. A boy of about 9 winters joins as well, clutching a small stick he has sharpened clumsily against the rocks. He is eager, his eyes bright with responsibility. The group forms quickly, like water pooling in a hollow, and together they step out of the cave's glow into the deepening blue of the forest. The air beneath the trees is cooler, the canopy thick with late light. Birds stir restlessly, some finding their roosts, others calling sharp and brief into the evening. Insects hum low, filling the silence with their steady drone. The gatherers move quietly, scanning the ground, eyes sharp, hands reaching. The tall woman stoops first, kneeling by a patch of low plants with wide leaves. She presses her fingers to the soil, then digs with a short stick, prying loose a cluster of tubers. She lifts them, their skin knotted and dirty but edible. She brushes them clean and drops them into her pouch. The boy crouches beside her, copying her motions. His stick is clumsy, but he manages to dislodge a small root, grinning as he holds it high. The woman nods once, approving, then gestures him onward. Another mother finds a cluster of wild onions. Their scent sharpens the air as she pulls them free, shaking soil from the roots. She holds one up to her daughter, who wrinkles her nose at the pungent smell but accepts it, dropping it carefully into their pouch. Together, they move to the next patch, eyes scanning, fingers ready. The woman with the infant works more slowly, her movements measured. She plucks herbs with small white flowers, tucking them into a bundle. The baby stirs against her back, reaching one tiny hand to grasp at the leaves. She murmurs softly, patting his arm, then continues. The herbs are bitter but healing, for cuts, for stomach pains, for fevers that sometimes grip the little ones in the night. She knows these plants as well as she knows her child's face. The boy moves farther ahead, eager to prove himself. He digs at the base of a tree, prying at a cluster of mushrooms. Some crumble in his hand. He frowns, unsure. The tall woman comes quickly, crouching beside him. She takes the mushroom, sniffs it, then shakes her head. Not safe. She brushes the boy's hands, scattering the crumbling pieces back to the soil. Then she points to another cluster, duller, thicker, hidden in shadow. She plucks one and holds it under his nose. Safe. He nods, determination renewed, and begins to gather the right ones. The forest thickens around them, branches low, undergrowth brushing their legs. The light dims, the air cooler still. They move together, always within sight, always within reach of a call or gesture. The tall woman pauses often, listening, her eyes sweeping the trees. Safety is never assumed. Gathering is not without risk. Snakes curl beneath leaves, boars root in the soil, and predators move silently in twilight. But hunger pushes them forward, and the forest has always been both danger and gift. The mother with the daughter pauses at a bush heavy with berries. She plucks one, crushes it lightly between her fingers, and smears the juice across her palm. The colour is deep, rich. She licks it, tests it, then nods. Safe. The daughter gathers eagerly, her small hands moving quickly, though many berries fall crushed to the earth before reaching the pouch. The mother lets her work, smiling faintly. Waste is a lesson too, and each berry lost teaches care for the next. The tall woman moves to a patch of tall grass, bending the stalks, plucking the seeds. She rubs them between her palms. letting the grains fall into a pouch. It is slow work, each handful small, but the grains will thicken broths, fill bellies. She hums as she works, a low, steady sound, a rhythm to guide the others. Soon, one of the mothers joins her, and the sound of seeds falling mixes with the rustle of leaves. The boy, tired now, kneels by a fallen log, poking with his stick. The wood crumbles, soft with rot, and beetles scatter. He grabs quickly, snatching two, dropping them into his pouch. He glances at the tall woman, seeking her approval. She nods once, and he beams. Insects are not shunned. They are food, small but sure. As the forest deepens, they turn back slowly, their pouches heavier. The air cools further, and shadows stretch long. A breeze stirs, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant smoke. They follow the sound of water to a small stream, pausing to rinse roots and herbs. The children splash briefly, laughing in silence, until the tall woman raises her hand sharply. Enough. The light fades. They must return. The path home is marked not by trails, but by memory. A twisted tree, a rock split in two, the faint scent of their own smoke carried on the breeze. They move quickly now, their steps sure, their eyes alert. Every rustle makes them pause, every shadow earns a glance. But the forest is kind tonight, no danger stirs. At last, the cave mouth appears, glowing faintly with firelight. Relief settles over them like a blanket. The children run ahead, eager to show their finds, their small bodies silhouetted against the flame. The mothers follow, slower, careful with their pouches. The tall woman lingers last, scanning the trees one final time before stepping inside. The cave welcomes them back with warmth and smoke. The old woman hums softly, greeting them without words. The children spill their treasures onto the ground. Mushrooms, roots, berries, beetles. Their eyes shine as they show what they have gathered, miming their finds with excited gestures. The mothers empty their pouches too, adding to the piles already waiting from the morning. The smell of earth and herbs fills the air, mingling with smoke and warmth. The tall woman kneels by the fire, spreading the roots to dry, setting berries into a bowl. The boy crouches beside her, watching, his face glowing with pride. She hands him a piece of root to chew, a small reward. He bites it, chewing solemnly, knowing he has done well. Evening deepens outside. The forest grows dark, the sounds of night rising, owls calling, insects buzzing, the wind whispering through leaves. Inside the cave, the gatherers settle, their work complete. They sit close to the fire, children leaning against mothers, pouches emptied, hands tired but satisfied. The tools made earlier lie near, gleaming faintly. The food gathered now will fill bellies later. The hunters are still away, but the band does not wait in hunger. The forest has given enough. Beneath the trees, they have gathered not just food, but memory. The paths of deer, the places of herbs, the patterns of roots. Each plant, each find is a thread in the web of survival, carried forward from one day to the next. And as the firelight warms their faces, the gatherers beneath the trees know they have kept the circle whole for another night. The cave is quieter now, its people settled into the rhythms of evening. The gatherers have returned, their harvest spread in neat piles, while children drowse against mothers' sides, or pick half-heartedly at roots. The fire burns brighter, its glow pushing against the edges of night. The hunters have been gone since morning, and though no one speaks their worry aloud, it hangs in the air like mist clinging to stone. Then, just as shadows deepen into true dark, the first sign arrives. Not footsteps, not voices, but scent. A sharp tang drifts through the entrance, faint but unmistakable. The smell of meat, raw and heavy, borne on the night air. The children stir first, noses lifting, eyes wide. The scarred man's son points toward the mouth of the cave, bouncing on his heels. Even before the hunters appear, the cave knows. They return with food. The tall woman rises quickly, striding to the entrance. She peers into the darkness, body tense. Shapes move among the trees, slow, burdened, but upright. Relief flickers across her face. She waves once, beckoning them in. The smell grows stronger as the shadows resolve into men, their shoulders hunched beneath the weight of their prize. They enter, 4 of them, weary and slick with sweat. Between 2, dragged on a wooden frame bound with sinew, lies the body of a deer. Its flank is torn where the spear struck, its eyes glazed, its hooves streaked with mud. Blood drips in a thin line behind it, marking their path. The hunters' chests heave with effort, their mouths dry, but their eyes gleam with triumph. The cave exhales as one, tension loosens, hunger stirs, life continues. The children crowd forward, reaching, eager. One boy touches the deer's flank, pulling his hand back quickly, smeared red. He stares at the blood on his fingers, half horrified, half awed. The scarred man lifts his son by the shoulders, setting him aside gently. Not yet. The meat must be honored before it is devoured. The hunters drop their burden near the fire. The smell thickens, filling the cave with a primal promise. The women rise from their places, moving forward with practiced motions. Knives of flint and bone are brought out. The tall woman kneels, her braid falling forward as she slices carefully, beginning the work of dividing the kill. Her hands are steady, sure. Each cut is clean, each motion precise. This is not chaos. It is ritual. The old woman shuffles closer, leaning heavily on her stick. She hums, low and steady, a sound that threads through the cave like smoke. The others pause briefly, acknowledging her song. It is not a prayer as we know it, but it carries weight. Gratitude, perhaps. Memory. A recognition that meat is not only a gift, but a cost. The deer has given its body, and the people will remember. The carcass is opened, steam rising into the cool air. The smell intensifies, rich and metallic. The hunters sit nearby, catching their breath, watching as the women work. The scarred man wipes his blade on the ground, then sharpens it again, though his eyes remain fixed on the fire. The youth who accompanied him earlier holds a spear loosely, his face proud but exhausted. He will carry the memory of this hunt in his muscles, in the ache of his bones. The children inch closer again, drawn by the smell, their stomachs growling audibly. One mother pulls her child back, giving him a strip of roasted root instead, but his eyes remain on the meat. His mouth waters, his hands twitch. This is the moment when hunger sharpens into longing, when the smell alone is almost enough to taste. The tall woman slices a piece of fat, holding it over the flames. It hisses, spitting droplets into the fire, releasing a wave of scent so strong it fills the cave, clinging to hair and skin. The children groan softly, clutching their bellies. The old woman hums louder, her voice rising with the crackle. She dips her fingers into the blood pooled on the stone, marking her forehead with a smear. The eldest girl among the children copies her, dipping her own hand, smearing her cheek. The others follow, laughing softly at the stickiness, though they sense the weight of the act. Soon, meat is divided. The first pieces go to the hunters, who chew slowly, their jaws working, savouring the reward for their effort. Then the women, who handled the butchering. Then the children, who squeal silently as warm, greasy strips are placed in their hands. They tear at it eagerly, juices running down their chins, their faces shining in the firelight. The infant gnaws at a strip held by his mother, smearing fat across his cheeks. The smell of roasted flesh mingles with smoke, filling every corner of the cave. The tall woman sets aside certain cuts, the heart, the liver, placing them on a flat stone before the fire. These are shared differently, consumed with quiet reverence. The scarred man takes a piece, chewing slowly, his eyes fixed on the flames. The old woman touches one to her lips, then crumbles it in her hands, sprinkling the fragments into the fire. Smoke rises, carrying the scent upward, as though feeding something beyond the cave. As the feast continues, the cave grows louder, not with words, but with sound. Grunts of satisfaction, the slapping of hands on thighs, the laughter of children as they lick their fingers clean. Bones crack between teeth. Fat drips onto the stone floor. The hunger that has gnawed since morning is quieted, replaced by fullness, warmth, and the deep comfort of survival. But even in joy, caution remains. The tall woman reminds the children to save bones, not scatter them. Bones will be shaped into tools, into needles, into weapons. The skin will be scraped and dried, becoming clothing, shelter, rope. Nothing is wasted. Every part of the deer carries use, every piece a thread in the weave of life. The youth who carried the spear sits tall now, his chest puffed, his face bright with pride. The other children gather around him, mimicking his stance, pretending to throw spears, chanting silently. He smiles, feeding their games with exaggerated gestures, showing how he struck. The scarred man watches, saying nothing, but the faint curve of his lips betrays approval. Night deepens outside, the forest alive with calls, owls, insects, distant predators. Inside, the cave glows, warm and safe. The smell of meat clings to the air, to skin, to stone. The children's laughter fades into yawns, their bellies full, their eyes heavy. Mothers wipe grease from their cheeks, tucking them into furs. The hunters lean back, weary but satisfied, their work complete for now. The old woman hums still, softer now, her voice a lullaby. She rocks gently on her heels, eyes half closed, her stick resting beside her. The firelight flickers across her face, across the bones, across the meat still smoking on stones. The smell of meat lingers long after hunger has been sated, a reminder of the day's labour, the day's gift. It hangs in the cave, heavy and comforting, as the people settle closer to the fire. Outside, the forest waits, dark and untamed. Inside, the band breathes together, full, warm, alive. And in the glow of the flames, beneath the weight of the scent, the cave whispers its ancient truth. Survival is not only struggle, it is also feast and fire, and the slow, quiet joy of meat on the wind. The feast has quieted. The children, drowsy with full bellies, curl against mothers and siblings, their cheeks sticky with fat, their hair smelling of smoke. The hunters lean against the stone walls, eyes heavy, their bodies aching from the long pursuit. The fire is strong, its glow steady, its warmth wrapping the band in a cocoon. But outside, the forest stirs with a different rhythm. The air grows heavy, dense with moisture. Leaves rustle not with the skittering of animals, but with the weight of wind rising from the west. The night deepens, and with it comes the promise of storm. The tall woman notices first. She steps to the cave mouth, scanning the trees. The air presses against her skin, damp and close. Lightning flickers faintly beyond the hills, a pale flash that lights the underbellies of the clouds. She inhales, sharp and steady. Rain is coming, not a passing shower, but a torrent. She turns back to the others, clicking her tongue twice, a signal of warning. The scarred man is on his feet instantly. He moves to the fire, feeding it a thicker log, ensuring the flame is strong before the storm strikes. Two younger hunters rise beside him, gathering extra wood from the pile stacked near the wall. The mothers rouse the children gently, pulling them closer to the center of the cave, bundling them into furs. The old woman hums, her tune lower now, a thread of calm woven into the rising tension. The storm arrives not with a drip, but with a roar. Rain lashes the trees outside, drumming on leaves, pouring in sheets. The wind pushes against the cave mouth, carrying the scent of wet earth and ozone. The fire crackles and hisses as damp air snakes inside. Shadows leap wildly across the walls, as if the cave itself shivers. One of the younger children whimpers, clutching his mother's arm. She wraps him tightly in a pelt, rocking him gently. Another child hides his face against his sister's shoulder, peeking out only when thunder cracks across the sky. The old woman begins to hum louder, steady and strong, drowning the thunder with her own rhythm. The children listen, soothed by her voice, their fear softened by its constancy. The hunters work quickly, dragging heavier stones toward the cave entrance. They stack them at the edges, narrowing the mouth, creating a buffer against the wind. Two women spread damp hides across the gaps, weighing them down with rocks. The tall woman checks each barrier, pressing her palm against the edges. Rain still seeps in, dripping down the walls, but the worst of the storm is kept at bay. Inside, the fire sputters, fighting the damp. The scarred man crouches close, shielding it with his body, coaxing it with dry moss and kindling. His breath is steady, his patience unshaken. A small flame catches, then grows, licking up the log. The children sigh in relief, their eyes fixed on the fire as though it were a living guardian. Outside, lightning tears across the sky, illuminating the forest in stark, fleeting images. Trees bent beneath the wind, rain cascading in sheets, branches crashing to the ground. For a moment, the cave is bright as day, then plunged into darkness again. Each flash paints the world in brilliance and shadow, reminding the band of the storm's power. But within the cave, the fire glows on, defiant, steady. The gatherers set to work with what they have brought in. Roots are arranged near the fire to dry, herbs bundled and tied. Mushrooms are spread on flat stones, safe from the damp. Even in storm, life does not pause. The work of preparation continues, hands busy, eyes watchful. The children, huddled together, begin to mimic the storm in play. One bangs a bone against the rock, copying the thunder. Another flaps his arms wildly, imitating the wind in the trees. They laugh softly, their fear turned into game. A girl holds her hands above her head, wiggling her fingers to mimic rain, letting droplets drip from her hair. The others join, their game a storm of their own making. Their laughter rises, filling the cave with warmth against the wildness outside. The old woman watches them, smiling faintly. She taps her stick against the ground in rhythm with the thunder, her hum weaving into their play. Her voice rises, matching the storm, as though challenging it. The children clap and stomp, their game growing louder, until even the roar of rain seems less fearsome. Hours pass this way. The storm does not relent quickly. Rain pounds on, wind shrieks, lightning tears the night. But within the cave, life bends and adapts. The barriers hold, the fire survives, the children laugh, the elders hum. The band weathers the storm, not by silence, but by turning fear into rhythm, chaos into play, survival into ritual. At last, the rain begins to soften. The thunder drifts farther away, the lightning less frequent. The air remains damp, heavy with the smell of wet leaves and soil. But the worst has passed. The tall woman removes one of the hides from the cave mouth, peering into the night. Drops still fall, but softer, steadier, no longer violent. She nods once, satisfied, and steps back inside. The children, tired from play, curl once more into furs. Their eyes close quickly, their breathing steady. Mothers stroke their hair, humming softly now, echoing the elders' tune. The hunters lean against the walls, their muscles loosening, their eyes half shut. The fire glows brighter in the damp air, its warmth filling the cave with comfort. The storm has reminded them of the sky's power, of how quickly the world can shift from gift to threat. But it has also reminded them of their strength, of the way they bend without breaking, of how the circle holds even when the world outside rages. The old woman's hum fades into silence. Only the soft dripping of water remains, the earth slowly exhaling after its fury. The cave breathes too, steady and alive, shelter against the sky. And so, as night deepens and calm returns, the band sleeps close to the fire, their shelter holding firm, their world intact once more. The storm has passed, but its breath still lingers. Drops of water fall steadily from the cave mouth, pattering onto stone. Outside, the forest sighs, leaves heavy with rain, branches bowed low. The air smells of damp earth, sharp and clean. Inside, however, the cave tells a different story. One of warmth, smoke, and the quiet rhythm of survival. The fire is the heart of it all. It has burned through the storm, tended carefully, coaxed into strength, and now it dances brighter, as though proud of its endurance. Sparks leap upward, vanishing into the darkness above, while smoke curls lazily, drifting in long ribbons that hang in the air before slipping through cracks in the stone ceiling. The band gathers close, drawn as always to the flame. They sit in a rough circle, some cross-legged, others leaning back on their elbows, children curled against their mothers' sides. Their bodies are tired from the day, their bellies full from the hunt, yet their eyes are awake, fixed on the fire's dance. It is more than light, more than warmth. It is a presence, a companion. The scarred man kneels near the fire, shifting logs, arranging them so the flames rise higher. His movements are precise, reverent. He places one branch, pauses, waits for it to catch before adding another. Each adjustment shapes the fire's life, guiding it gently, never forcing. The tall woman watches, nodding faintly. She takes a bundle of damp sticks, laying them near the edge of the fire to dry. Smoke rises from them in thin, curling threads, filling the cave with a smell both sharp and comforting. Children begin to play with the smoke. One waves his hands through it, shaping it into trails that twist and scatter. Another cups both palms and blows, sending a burst upward, laughing silently when it swirls above him. Their laughter is wordless yet clear, filling the cave with warmth beyond the fire. The old woman leans forward, her face lit by flame. She picks up two small stones and taps them together rhythmically, soft clicks that echo against the cave walls. The children pause, watching. She taps again, steady and slow, then points toward the sparks leaping from the fire. She taps once more. Sparks rise. The lesson is clear. Fire and stone are kin. Sparks are born from both. The eldest girl among the children mimics her, striking two bones together. The sound is dull, but she smiles, her eyes bright with understanding. The others follow, gathering stones, bones, sticks, creating their own rhythms. The cave fills with a symphony of soft clicks and cracks, blending with the crackle of the fire. It is not music, not yet, but it is a beginning. Smoke weaves through the air, carrying with it the scent of roasting meat, drying hides, burning resin. The women tend to their tasks, spreading hides closer to the fire, rubbing them with fat to keep them supple. They stretch sinew, twist cords, lay herbs on flat stones to dry. Each motion is guided by the fire's heat, by its patience. Without flame, their work would wither. With it, they create the threads of survival. The scarred man picks up a piece of flint, striking it against another stone. Sparks fly, brief and bright. The children gasp softly, their mouths open in awe. He does it again, deliberately, showing them how fire is coaxed from stone. One boy crawls forward, reaching eagerly. The scarred man hands him the flint, guiding his grip. The boy strikes, clumsy at first, then harder. At last, a spark jumps. His eyes widen, his chest swells with pride. The others cheer silently, their hands clapping against their thighs. A lesson has been passed, a skill born into new hands. The tall woman feeds the fire with resinous wood, and the flames leap higher, sparks bursting into the air. They rise like stars, brief and brilliant, fading into smoke. The children mimic them, raising their arms, twirling, falling back into furs with laughter. Their play echoes the fire's dance, weaving joy into the cave's rhythm. As the night deepens, the cave grows hazy with smoke. It clings to hair, to skin, to hides, yet no one minds. Smoke is safety. Smoke keeps away biting insects, masks the scent of the band from prowling predators, carries warmth into the cold night. It is the cave's veil, both shield and breath. The old woman begins to hum again, her voice weaving with the crackle of fire, the taps of stone and bone, the laughter of children. Her melody rises and falls like smoke itself, drifting, curling, dissolving. The children sway to it, their eyes heavy, their movements slower. Some press their palms into the soot on the walls, smearing lines, creating crude shapes. Sparks leap, casting their drawings into flickering life. A bison runs, a bird flies, a handprint glows. In firelight and smoke, the cave becomes alive with stories unspoken, images half born from imagination. The hunters watch in silence, their faces softened by the glow. They see themselves in the children's play, in the shapes on the wall, in the sparks rising like stars. Their lives, hard and full of risk, are mirrored here in small, bright moments. The tall woman catches their eyes, nodding once. They nod back. No words are needed. The fire shifts again, crackling louder as it consumes a thicker log. Sparks shoot higher, scattering across the cave like a constellation. The children gasp, pointing, their fingers tracing the patterns. The eldest girl whispers a hum of her own, high and thin, weaving it into the old woman's tune. Soon others join, their voices blending into a gentle chorus. Smoke swirls above, sparks leap, and for a moment, it is as though the sky has descended into the cave. Stars and firelight, voices and rhythm, the dance of smoke and sparks. The mothers hush the youngest, tucking them into furs, stroking their hair as they drift towards sleep. The hunters stretch out, their eyes half closed, their bodies heavy with exhaustion. The tall woman adds one last branch to the fire, watching it catch, ensuring the flame will hold through the night. The old woman's hum fades, replaced by the steady breath of the sleeping children, the low crackle of fire, the faint drip of water from the cave mouth. Sparks still leap, fewer now, smaller but persistent. Smoke curls upward, carrying with it the memory of the day, the hunt, the gathering, the storm, the feast. And as the cave settles into stillness, the fire dances on, its sparks rising like dreams, its smoke weaving stories through the night. The people sleep in its glow, their world bound together by flame, their lives carried forward by the dance of smoke and sparks. The night has passed slowly, steady as the fire's breath. Shadows shifted, sparks rose and died. Children whimpered in dreams and were hushed. Hunters stirred and fell still again. The storm left the forest heavy and dripping, but the cave held, dry, safe, alive. Now the deep darkness thins, fading into a softer grey. The fire burns low, glowing embers tucked beneath ash. Dawn is here once more. But this is no ordinary morning. The air itself feels different, touched with weight. As light seeps slowly into the cave, it arrives not in pale mist, but in a glow more radiant, more golden. The sky outside is clear now, washed by the storm, and the sun rises into a horizon scrubbed clean. Shafts of light strike through the trees, piercing the forest canopy, gilding each leaf with fire. The world does not simply wake, it gleams. The tall woman is the first to rise, as always. She steps to the cave mouth, her body framed by the golden light. She lifts her chin, inhaling deeply, filling her lungs with the crisp air. Her braid glimmers, strands catching the glow. She turns back to the others, her expression calm, but her eyes shine with something unspoken. The scarred man stirs, pulling himself upright, stretching stiff muscles. He moves to the fire, poking through the ashes, uncovering the ember still glowing beneath. With practiced hands, he feeds it bark, then a stick, then breath, coaxing the flame back into life. The smoke rises swiftly, carrying with it the scent of wet earth, of charred wood, of yesterday's meat. Children blink awake, their eyes catching the golden light as they shift beneath furs. One rubs his face with both fists, yawning. Another sits upright, blinking into the brightness. The old woman hums before her eyes are even open. Her voice begins low, then lifts with the morning light. She has no words for the sun, no names for dawn, but her melody carries reverence all the same. She taps her stick against the ground, steady, slow, each knock echoing like a heartbeat. The children listen, their fear of storm gone now, their bodies loosening with the day. Soon the gatherers step into motion. Roots and herbs laid out to dry are checked, turned, rearranged in the sunlight streaming into the cave. Mushrooms are shifted to warmer spots. Meat is cut again, strips hung on branches to cure. The tall woman lifts a strip, holds it to the light, nods in approval. The gold of the sun touches even their work, as if blessing it. Yet amid the rhythm of morning, something heavier lingers. Not all of the hunters returned in the night. The deer had been brought back, yes, and meat shared, but 2 men remained away. They had trailed farther, chasing another shadow into the storm. They were expected before dawn. Now, with the sun high enough to gild the cave's mouth, they are still not here. The scarred man frowns, his gaze fixed on the forest beyond. He sharpens his blade slowly, the scrape of stone on stone carrying unease. The tall woman notices, stepping to his side. She tilts her head, questioning. He shakes his once, briefly, and returns to his work. No words, no alarm, but the absence is felt by all. The children, sensing the tension though not fully understanding, grow quieter. Their play is subdued, more watchful. One girl sits near the entrance, tracing shapes in the dirt with a stick, her eyes flicking to the trees as though expecting figures to emerge at any moment. A boy mimics the scarred man, pretending to sharpen his own stick, his face serious. Their games echo the mood around them. The old woman hums louder now, her voice steadying the cave. She smears ash on her forehead, then presses her palm against the wall, leaving a faint handprint. The eldest child copies her, pressing his smaller hand beside hers. Soon, others follow, palms blackened with soot, marking the stone. Not ritual, not prayer, but presence. A way of saying, we are here, we wait, we endure. The golden light grows stronger, stretching longer into the cave. Dust motes dance in the beams, rising like sparks. The women shift closer to the light, laying their work where the sun can touch it. The tall woman lifts her infant, holding him into the glow. His tiny fingers curl towards it, catching brightness in their grasp. She smiles faintly, pressing her lips to his head. In this world of uncertainty, this moment, golden, simple, is a gift. Outside, the forest begins its own awakening. Birds call brightly from branches, their songs renewed after the storm. Insects buzz, wings glittering in the sunlight. Water drips steadily from leaves, sparkling as it falls. Even the distant hills gleam, their edges sharp against the morning sky. The world is alive, vibrant, pulsing with light. Yet the hunters remain absent. The scarred man rises, pacing to the entrance. He crouches, scanning the tree line. His jaw tightens. The tall woman joins him, her eyes narrowed, her breath slow. The two stand in silence, guardians at the mouth of the cave. Behind them, the band waits, the fire crackling softly, children shifting uneasily. One boy breaks the tension with play. He picks up a stick, lifts it high, and points it toward the sunlit trees. He grunts, mimicking the stance of a hunter. Another joins him, crouching low, pretending to stalk. Their game grows, more children joining, acting out the hunt with exaggerated gestures. The mothers allow it, watching silently. Play has always been a way to soften fear. The old woman taps her stick in rhythm with their game, her hum carrying into their movements. The children's mock hunt becomes a dance, their bodies weaving in and out of the golden light, their shadows long on the cave floor. The fire, the hum, the sun, together they bind the fear into rhythm, into story. As midday nears, the tension begins to fray. The scarred man still watches the trees, but his blade lies idle in his lap. The tall woman sits with her infant, rocking gently, her eyes still flicking to the horizon. The others sort through food, feed children, mend tools. The absence remains, but life does not halt. The band must continue. Then, at last, movement in the distance. Figures, faint, emerging from the tree line. The scarred man stiffens, then relaxes, exhaling slowly. The tall woman stands, shading her eyes. Two men, weary but upright, step into the clearing, their bodies bent beneath the weight of a boar. The golden light strikes them as they approach, gilding their sweat, their burden, their triumph. Relief floods the cave. The children leap to their feet, cheering silently, their arms raised. The women smile, some laughing softly, the weight of worry lifting. The scarred man moves forward to meet them, gripping the frame of wood they carry, helping ease the load. The tall woman claps once, sharp and clear, calling the others to prepare. The cave stirs into motion again, knives and stones readied, pouches opened. The boar is dragged inside, its tusks catching the firelight. The smell of blood mingles with smoke once more. The band gathers close, hungry but also grateful. The old woman hums, tapping her stick firmly, her rhythm strong. The children press close to the walls, their hands touching their fresh soot marks, their eyes shining in the gold of morning. And so the circle is whole again. The absent have returned. The fear dissolves into relief, the worry into celebration. The golden sky outside stretches wide, and within the cave, light and fire blend, binding the band in warmth. When the sky turns gold, it is not only the forest that gleams. It is the people too, alive, together, enduring beneath the brilliance of a world that both tests and blesses them. The golden morning has passed into the long, soft light of late day. The boar rests now in pieces, divided and set upon stones near the fire. Strips of meat hang from branches just inside the cave, slowly drying in the warmth. Bones lie in neat piles, ready to be scraped, sharpened, reshaped. The air is thick with the mingled scents of smoke, blood, fat, and damp hide. The band has eaten once more, their hunger satisfied, their bellies heavy. But in this life, satisfaction is not an end. It is only a pause. Even as the warmth of food settles in their bodies, their hands are busy again. Evening is the time for mending, for shaping, for binding themselves closer through work and quiet presence. The scarred man sits cross-legged, a piece of flint in his hand. His blade is sharp, but he sharpens still, smoothing edges, testing balance. Each strike of stone against stone is deliberate, steady. Beside him sits his son, small but intent, turning a pebble again and again, copying his father's motions with clumsy seriousness. The man does not correct him, not yet. He only lets the boy's hands learn the feel of stone, the rhythm of strike and pause. Nearby, the tall woman spreads a hide across her lap. She runs her fingers along its surface, feeling for rough patches. With a scraper, she works slowly, smoothing, softening, coaxing the hide into something pliable. Her infant sleeps strapped to her back, lulled by the steady motion of her shoulders. Each scrape of stone against skin is both labor and lullaby. The older children form a smaller circle of their own. They have gathered bones from the meal, tapping them together, grinding them against stone, pretending to craft needles and spear tips. Their voices rise in soft hums, echoing the old woman's song, weaving work into play. One girl, determined, rubs a bone so fiercely against the cave wall that sparks of dust fly. She grins, showing her work proudly to the others. The bone is not sharp, not yet, but the effort is the lesson. The old woman sits with them, her milky eyes following their movements. She hums softly, tapping her stick in rhythm with their play. At times, she reaches out, adjusting a child's grip, guiding small fingers into steadier motions. The children lean into her touch, their laughter softening into focus. Her voice weaves around them, low and steady, as though she carries all the patience of the earth itself. One of the younger mothers tends to her daughter's hair. She pulls it into tight braids, weaving small bits of grass and sinew to bind it. The child winces but stays still, knowing this care is more than grooming. It is protection. Loose hair tangles in wind, catches in branches, distracts in the hunt. Braids are order, control, readiness. The mother's fingers move swiftly, practiced. each twist an act of love. At the far side of the fire, two men bend over the boar's tusks. They scrape away bits of flesh, testing the curve, running hands along the smooth surface. One begins to grind the tip against a stone, shaping it to a finer point. These tusks will be tools, perhaps awls for piercing hide, perhaps ornaments, perhaps weapons. Their work is silent, but their eyes flicker with thought, imagining what each piece will become. The cave is filled with the sounds of evening labour, the scrape of stone, the hum of voices, the crackle of fire. It is not noise but rhythm, each sound blending with the others, steady and soothing. The children grow quieter, their play becoming more focused, their bodies leaning closer together. Mothers rock infants gently, their movements synced with the work of their hands. Fathers sharpen, scrape, bind. Elders watch, hum, guide. The scarred man pauses in his work, glancing at his son. The boy's hands are clumsy, but his eyes are fierce, intent. The man smiles faintly, almost hidden in shadow. He places his own blade down and picks up a smaller flake, offering it to the boy. The child takes it carefully, his face solemn. Together, father and son strike stone, side by side, sparks glinting briefly in the firelight. The tall woman lifts the softened hide from her lap, holding it up for the others to see. She stretches it wide, then folds it neatly, tucking it into a pouch. It will be cut later, sewn with sinew, shaped into clothing or bedding. She wipes her hands on her thighs, then reaches behind her, stroking her infant's head. He stirs but does not wake. Her face softens, her body sways gently. The bond between mother and child, between work and care, is seamless. The old woman shifts her weight, leaning closer to the fire. She dips her hand into the soot, smearing it across her fingers. With slow, deliberate motions, she draws lines on the stone floor. Circles, spirals, marks old as memory. The children watch, wide-eyed. She taps her stick once, then points to the marks, humming. The children imitate her, dragging their fingers through the soot, copying her shapes. Their small hands leave smudges beside hers, their laughter hushed but bright. In this act, the family grows, not just by blood, but by shared rhythm, shared memory. As the sun lowers, golden light filters into the cave one last time, striking sparks from stone, gleaming on tools, lighting faces. Dust motes swirl, glowing like tiny stars. The fire deepens, its heart red and pulsing, its smoke rising in long threads. The band leans closer together, their circle tightening as the sky darkens outside. Food, tools, hides, fire. These are the bones of survival. But it is the weaving of family around them that gives strength. Fur against skin, flint in hand, the warmth of breath against another's cheek. These are as necessary as meat or stone. In their closeness, in their shared work, they build not only safety, but belonging. Night comes quietly, slipping into the forest outside. Owls call. Insects drone. The air cools, sharp with damp. But within the cave, the band is warm. They press shoulder to shoulder, mother to child, elder to youth. Flint is sharpened, hides softened, bonds strengthened. The scarred man finishes his blade at last, holding it up to the fire. It gleams, sharp and ready. He sets it aside, then wraps an arm around his son, pulling him close. The boy leans against him, eyes heavy, stone still clutched in his small hand. The tall woman lays her hide near the fire, curling beside her infant. The old woman hums, her voice soft now, trailing into silence. Fur, flint, and family, the tools of survival, the threads of belonging. The fire glows steady, casting its light on faces tired but content. The cave holds them all, their circle unbroken, their lives bound together by work, by warmth, by love, unspoken but deeply felt. And as the night deepens, the fire's glow cradles them still, its sparks carrying their quiet strength into the dark. The night has deepened, pressing heavy against the forest. Outside, the trees sway in a rhythm known only to the wind. Owls call, insects sing, and unseen creatures pad softly through undergrowth. But within the cave, time moves differently. Firelight flickers across stone walls, casting shadows that stretch and curl like living things. Smoke drifts upward in ribbons, carrying the scent of roasted meat, dried hides, and charred wood. And in the center of this glow, watching it all, sits the old woman. Her eyes, clouded and pale, catch the firelight in ways that make them seem almost otherworldly. They no longer see clearly, not as the younger hunters do, not as the children with their sharp, eager gaze. Yet her eyes hold something else, not the precision of sight, but the weight of memory. She sees in ways the others cannot. She sees the band as a whole, the circle of bodies bound together by fire, blood, and silence. She sees what has been before and what must come again. She sits close to the flames, her stick resting across her lap, her hands folded over it. The warmth seeps into her bones, easing their ache, though the stiffness never truly leaves. Every movement is slower now, deliberate, but her stillness does not mean idleness. She watches, she listens, she remembers. Children gather near her as the fire crackles. They always do. Some lean against her legs, their small bodies pressing for comfort. Others sit cross-legged before her, their faces upturned, waiting. They know she will hum again, or perhaps draw, or tap her stick against the ground. Even without words, they know she carries something important, something they are meant to receive. She begins as she always does, with sound, a hum, low and steady, rising from her chest like the earth's own murmur. The tone is simple, yet it carries rhythm. The children sway slightly, their eyes heavy with the comfort of it. The younger ones mimic the sound, their voices high and wavering, weaving into her tone. Together they create a song, thin but growing. Then, with her free hand, she dips into the soot near the fire. Her fingers blackened, she drags them across the stone floor. Lines appear, short, sharp strokes, then a circle, then a handprint pressed firm. The children lean forward eagerly. She taps the circle with her finger, then presses her palm against her chest. Her meaning is clear. We belong to this. One boy presses his own hand into the soot, smearing it beside hers. Another traces the lines, then adds his own crude shape, perhaps an animal, perhaps only memory. The old woman nods, approving. Her cloudy eyes do not follow the lines precisely, but she does not need to. She has drawn them 1,000 times before, in firelight, in ash, in earth. The shapes are not hers alone. They belong to all who learn them, to all who will carry them forward. The hunters watch from their places near the wall. Their bodies are weary, their bellies full, but their eyes soften at the sight of her. They know she is the memory of the band. When she is gone, her hums and lines and gestures must live in the hands of the young. They do not speak this, but they feel it, heavy in their chests. The tall woman shifts her infant on her back, moving closer. She lowers herself beside the old woman, offering a bundle of herbs. The elder takes them in her hands, turning them slowly, inhaling their scent. Her eyes close. For a long moment, She is still. Then she hums again, a higher note, sharper, as though marking the herb's importance. She presses them back into the younger woman's palm, tapping twice. The message is clear. Remember these. They heal. They matter. The tall woman nods, her eyes bright with gratitude. The scarred man's son creeps forward, holding a bone. He sets it before the old woman, looking at her expectantly. She picks it up, feeling its weight, tracing its edges with her fingers. Slowly, she lifts her stick and taps the bone 3 times against the floor. Then she hands it back. The boy grins, clutching it as though it has become something more. Not just bone, but lesson. The old woman's eyes turn to the fire again. Sparks leap, rising into smoke. Her lips part, and she exhales sharply, blowing into the flame. The sparks scatter, swirling upward. She lifts her hand, pointing to the ceiling, following their path. The children's eyes follow too, watching the sparks vanish into the dark. She hums, softer now, her voice almost lost in the crackle. It is a sound of endings, of things that rise and are gone. The children frown, sensing the weight of it. One girl clutches her mother's hand. The hunters shift uneasily. They too feel the truth she is sharing. The sparks are not only fire, they are life itself, brief, bright, vanishing into the sky. The old woman knows this more than any of them. She is closer to the vanishing than they are. Yet her hum is not sorrowful. It is steady, almost peaceful. Sparks rise, sparks fade, but the fire endures. She reaches for her stick again, tapping it against the floor. The rhythm is slow, then faster, then slow again. The children copy, clapping their hands in time. Their laughter returns, breaking the heaviness. The old woman smiles faintly, her eyes glowing in the firelight. She has given the lesson. Life is brief, but she has also given comfort. The circle holds. The fire endures. Later, as the cave grows quieter, the old woman shifts onto her side, lying close to the fire. Her eyes remain open, watching. She sees the mother's braiding hair, the father's shaping blades, the children drifting into sleep. She sees the sparks still rising, the smoke curling, the handprints black on stone. She sees all of it, holding it within her clouded gaze. The band rests, their breaths soft and steady. But the old woman's eyes remain, watching, remembering. They are dim with age, yet bright with memory, carrying the stories of hunts long past, storms endured, births witnessed, deaths mourned. She is the keeper of their silence, the voice in their hums, the hand in their soot marks. And as the fire flickers low, casting its last light on the walls, her eyes shine on, steady, unblinking, filled with the weight of all that has been and all that will come. The fire has burned low, its once towering flames now a deep, pulsing heart of red. Smoke drifts lazily upward, winding into the cracks of the cave's ceiling before slipping into the night. Around it, the band settles into the hush of sleep. Mothers curl with children under furs. Hunters rest their backs against stone, their blades within reach. The tall woman sways gently, her infant pressed to her chest. Even the scarred man leans forward, eyes heavy, his knife set aside. The cave is quiet, but not silent. The fire still speaks, crackling softly, releasing occasional pops as sap surrenders to flame. Outside, the forest whispers, its voice carried in the rustle of branches and the low murmur of water. Insects buzz faintly, owls hoot in the distance. The rhythm of the world never truly stops. But here, in this sheltered hollow, it softens. Children lie closest to the fire, their faces bathed in faint orange light. Their breathing slows, but their eyes, not yet fully closed, remain fixed on the shadows dancing across the cave walls. The flames make animals come alive there, a deer leaping, a bison's massive back curving, the spread of wings. The children whisper in their way, pointing with fingers, laughing softly, seeing stories where only smoke and shadow move. The eldest girl begins to mimic the shapes, lifting her hands before the fire, twisting them into forms. A bird flaps, its wings crude but clear. A rabbit hops, her fingers twitching quickly. The younger children gasp, then clap, their tired eyes brightening. Soon, others join, casting shapes of their own. One boy forms a crude bison with his hands, lowering his head in imitation of its strength. Another holds both arms wide, fingers splayed, creating a monstrous shape that makes the others squeal with mock fear. The old woman hums faintly, encouraging them, her voice low and steady. Her hum matches the rise and fall of the shadows, weaving them into rhythm. For the children, this is story, not told with words, but shaped by firelight, gestures, and the imagination that springs from darkness. Slowly, play fades into drowsiness. One child yawns, his hands falling into his lap. Another lies flat, still watching the wall, her lids fluttering closed, though she resists sleep. Dreams wait for them just beyond the firelight. And what dreams come to these children of stone and shadow? Perhaps they see the hunt, reliving the chase of the deer or the boar. In their dreams, they run faster, their spears strike true, their bellies fill endlessly. Or perhaps they dream of danger, eyes glowing in the dark forest, claws raking stone. Their bodies twitch as they sleep, small limbs kicking, hands clenching, faces shifting with the stories only they can see. The adults, too, drift into dreams. The scarred man shifts in his sleep, his brow furrowed. Perhaps he dreams of hunts gone wrong, of spears snapping, of prey turning to predator. His hand twitches toward his knife even in rest. The tall woman breathes evenly, her infant's tiny hand pressed against her chest. Her dream may be of endless trees, of streams that never dry, of her child growing strong and unbroken. The old woman lies closest to the fire, her eyes half closed. She hums even in sleep, her breath carrying fragments of melody. Her dreams are heavier, deeper. They stretch far back into hunts and storms and births long past. She sees faces no longer here, voices long vanished. Her eyes move beneath their lids, but her hum continues, a bridge between waking and dream. The fire throws shadows high, painting the walls in restless motion. Animals flicker in and out of being, bison blending into hunters, hunters shifting into birds, birds melting into hands. The children's last waking thoughts are tangled in these shapes, and when their eyes close at last, the shadows follow them into sleep. The cave is wrapped now in the hush of slumber. Breaths rise and fall together, weaving into one soft rhythm. The fire crackles gently, the smoke curling like a lullaby. Outside, the forest continues its own night song. Owls, insects, the distant splash of water. Predators may stalk, but the band does not stir. Within the circle of flame and stone, they are safe. Dreams hold them, shaping their night as surely as the fire shapes the cave's shadows. Dreams of food, of family, of fear, of hope. Dreams that carry lessons, warnings, comforts. Dreams shaped not by words, but by the flicker of fire and the hush of night. And so, as the sky above turns black and the stars wheel unseen beyond the cave walls, The people sleep. The fire glows. The shadows dance. And in their dreams, the first stories of humankind continue, born of smoke, of silence, of shadows made alive. The night deepens still. Outside, stars scatter themselves in brilliance across the sky, though none within the cave can see them. Inside, the fire has burned down to embers, a glowing heart that pulses faintly. Smoke drifts upward in thin threads, winding lazily before vanishing into cracks above. Around the fire, the band sleeps, their bodies curled into furs, their breaths steady and soft. Yet even in silence, the cave is not empty. It speaks in its own way, through the cool press of its stone, through the faint marks that cover its walls, through the echoes that linger long after voices fade. It holds memory, not in words but in stains of soot, in smears of ochre, in the faint outline of palms pressed against stone. The eldest children, restless before full sleep, notice these shadows of the past most keenly. One boy, eyes heavy but still curious, reaches out a hand to trace the faint line of a painted mark on the wall. His fingers glide across the rough surface, feeling the uneven texture, the grit of old soot that never quite fades. He does not know who placed it there. Perhaps the scarred man in his youth, perhaps one long gone. But in touching it, he feels connection. The cave has seen before, and it remembers. The old woman, lying close to the fire, shifts. Her milky eyes open, clouded but alert. She has woken in the night, as she often does. Her gaze, though dim, turns toward the walls. She hums low, almost inaudible, as if acknowledging the ghosts painted there. Slowly, with stiff fingers, she dips her hand into the soot near the embers. She presses it against the stone beside her, leaving the shape of her palm dark against the lighter rock. Her handprint joins those already fading, another mark in the cave's long memory. She withdraws her hand, smudged black, and rests it over her chest. Her hum deepens, carrying the weight of years. The children stir, watching. One girl crawls closer, eyes wide. She presses her own small hand into the soot, copying the elder. Her mark is smaller, lighter, uneven, but beside the elder's, it glows with youth. The old woman places her hand gently over the girl's, tapping twice. A bond is sealed, past and future pressed together, side by side. The scarred man wakes briefly, watching from across the fire. He does not intervene. He understands what this is, a lesson older than language. The cave remembers everything, and now his child, too, will be remembered within it. He lies back, closing his eyes again, content. The cave walls are alive with such traces. Here, faint outlines of animals, drawn with fingers dipped in ash. A curve that could be horn, a smear that resembles wings. There, the red stain of ochre, faded but still vibrant in certain light. Shapes without names, yet holding power. They are not art in the way we might know it. They are not decoration. They are presence. Each mark says, we were here. We lived. We endured. The younger children, not yet fully asleep, begin to mimic what they see. One drags a stick across the dirt, echoing the curve of the wall's shapes. Another presses both palms into ash, stamping them in a line across the ground. They laugh softly, their whispers filling the cave with life. Their mothers hush them gently, pulling them back into furs, but not before the children have left their own marks. The cave accepts them all. Above, the ceiling bears darker scars, layers of smoke from countless fires, black upon black. Each season, each year, has left its trace. Even without words, the band can read it. Here, a time when the fire burned long and strong. There, a season when the cave filled with too much smoke, choking and heavy. The stone tells these stories silently, holding them in its skin. The old woman knows them best. Her gaze lingers on those blackened layers. Her hum changes, rising, falling, echoing the shape of smoke. The children, drifting into sleep, hear it as a lullaby, though it is also memory. She hums not for herself, but for the cave, as though her voice might stitch new memories into its stone. One boy dreams now, twitching in his furs. His hand, still smudged with soot, brushes the ground. His dream carries him into the walls themselves, into bison and deer, into handprints glowing. He smiles in sleep, his body remembering what his mind cannot yet name. The fire crackles faintly, sending up sparks. For a brief moment, the walls glow again with movement. The marks come alive, shadows dancing across them. A line becomes a running deer. A smear becomes a bird in flight. The children, half asleep, see these flickers and sigh softly, their dreams entwined with shadow. The cave itself seems to breathe, its memory alive in the glow of the flames. In the far corner, a mother rocks her infant. She strokes his hair with soot-darkened fingers, then presses a mark of ash on his forehead. He sleeps, unaware, but the cave holds the moment. Years from now, he may press his own hand to the same wall, adding to the chorus of memory. Outside, the forest hums with its own life. Wolves move silently in the distance, noses lifted to the wind. Rain drips from leaves, echoing softly. The night sky is vast, endless, but inside, the cave is both small and infinite. It is a womb, a shelter, and a canvas all at once. The cave has seen storms, hunts, births, deaths. It has held laughter and fear, hunger and plenty. It has watched bodies sleep and rise again, watched hands smear ash and blood across its walls. And though it cannot speak, it remembers. Every mark, every line, every handprint is its language, its silent record of lives too fragile to endure without stone. The old woman closes her eyes at last, soot still on her fingers. Her hum fades into breath, steady and slow. Around her, the children dream. The hunters rest. The mothers curl with their little ones. The fire glows low, smoke drifting gently. The cave holds them all. It cradles their warmth, their scent, their voices. It keeps their marks long after their bodies move on. It whispers back to them in the silence, "You were here. I will remember." And so the band sleeps on, unaware that their lives, fleeting as sparks, are etched forever into stone. The cave remembers everything, their hunger, their laughter, their fear, their belonging. Tomorrow they will rise again, and tomorrow the cave will hold their new marks beside the old. The fire fades, the night stretches, but the memory remains, written in shadow, in soot, in stone. The fire burns low, a slow and steady pulse at the heart of the cave. Its light no longer leaps high in sparks, but glows soft, red as embers buried in ash. The storm has passed, the hunts are finished, the roots are gathered, the hides stretched and dried. Around the fire, the band breathes in one steady rhythm, their bodies pressed close, a circle bound by warmth, hunger answered, and the day's long labour behind them. Outside, the forest has stilled into its deepest night. The rain-washed air is crisp, the stars brilliant beyond the canopy, though no one here stares up to count them. Owls call distantly, their cries low and haunting. The rustle of leaves is soft, stirred by nothing more than the smallest breath of wind. Far away, wolves lift their voices, not close enough to threaten, but close enough to remind. The world is wide, alive, endless. Inside, time has slowed. The scarred man lies against the wall, his son tucked into the crook of his arm. His knife rests near his hand, but his grip is loose. His body finally slack after a day of strength spent and restored. The tall woman lies curled, her infant against her chest, her braid spilling across her shoulder. The child stirs once, then sighs, his tiny hand opening and closing as though still reaching for light in dreams. The children are scattered in furs, limbs tangled, faces soft in sleep. One boy twitches, kicking at shadows in his dreams, his hand still smudged with soot from the wall. The eldest girl rests with her hand stretched outward, fingertips brushing the outline of a handprint left long ago. The youngest, hardly more than a bundle of warmth, is pressed into his mother's side, breath rising and falling like the smallest tide. And near the fire, as always, the old woman lies. Her eyes are closed now, her hum silenced by sleep. But her presence lingers. Even in rest, she feels like memory given form. Her breath slow, her chest rising and falling in rhythm with the ember's glow. Her stick rests beside her hand, her soot-stained fingers curled loosely around it. She has carried the day into night, and now she lets the cave hold her. The cave itself is alive with silence. The walls, blackened with soot and handprints, glow faintly in the last light. Shadows linger, animals frozen mid-stride, hands reaching outward, spirals and lines whispering memory. Smoke clings to stone, its scent soaked into every crevice. The floor is marked with scraps of bone, flakes of flint, stains of fat. These traces, humble and unspoken, are the language of existence. The cave holds them all. This is a night without words, without names. The people here do not call themselves by any title, do not divide time into numbers or days. Their world is one of rhythm, of hunger and fullness, of storm and calm, of night and day. They live beneath a sky of endless stars, but without the need to name a single one. And in that namelessness lies a kind of peace, a belonging to the world itself. The fire cracks softly, sparks lifting briefly, fading into the dark above. Each spark is a life, bright, brief, gone. But the fire endures, just as the band endures, their circle unbroken. They dream now, their bodies surrendered, their minds wandering into shadows and shapes. Some dream of hunts, their arms raised high with spears. Others dream of rivers, flowing endless and full. Children dream of bison, of wings, of fire turned into stars. The old woman dreams too, though her dreams reach farther. She sees hunts from decades past, faces of those no longer here, fires in caves that no longer shelter them. She dreams of children long grown, of storms endured, of voices gone quiet. In her dream, the cave itself hums back to her, its walls alive with all the hands that have touched it. She sleeps, but she remembers. The night wears on. Outside, the forest shifts from deep silence to the stirrings of early dawn. The wolves' calls fade, replaced by the chatter of small creatures rising from their nests. The stars dim, one by one, though no one here stirs to see them. In the cave, the fire glows still, a patient guardian. Its warmth wraps around the sleepers, its light cradles their shadows. At last, a faint grey creeps across the horizon, though the band remains in slumber. Morning is not yet here, but it waits. The fire will be fed again. The hunters will rise. The gatherers will step into the trees. The children will play and learn by the circle of flame. The old woman will hum once more, drawing lines that tie memory to stone. The rhythm will continue, as it always has, as it always will. And so, they rest, not as individuals, but as one body, bound together by need, by love, by fire. Beneath a world without names, they are more than voices or marks. They are survival itself, carried forward by rhythm, memory, and the strength of their circle. Sleep cradles them now, as the cave cradles them, as the earth itself cradles the cave. Outside, the sky lightens, but inside, dreams linger. Sparks fade, shadows curl. The breath of the band rises and falls, steady as the tide. And in this moment, with no names, no words, no divisions of time, they are at peace. They are together. They are alive. Sleep well beneath the fire's glow. Sleep well beneath the world without names.